Hi, this is Natu, a guy who's way too old and way too long involved in this game, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel.
Being as when you were in mTw, you had Ave, who, like I said at the time, all of us nerds in demos thought was the best. He just looked like he had the best player book, calling. How would you contrast with Glaive? Because obviously for the modern fan, Glaive is their version, right? They think he's the greatest.
They're very different in personality and leadership-wise. I think I was probably more the leader in mTw than Ave was. Ave was just, the tactical thing, and then sometimes a player would, MJE could be crazy with Ave, and then Ave would be, but if you don't want me to call, this, a little bit sad, and then I would have to either defend him or try and, be a little bit more, the leader in the sense of talking them both to a sense. Glaive was a full-time leader, both on and off the server. Very strict, but also fair, I would say. He was very good at giving his, teammates, space. If they wanted to do something, he rarely said no. But at some point, he also said no when he had to say no. And you just had those times and games where everyone was just believing in Glaive. No matter what the freak he called, they were just going to follow it. And they, to some extent, I think they didn't even want to come with suggestions. Even if they felt something, they just wanted to hear if Glaive has a plan. If not, then they would start talking. And usually it's the other way around, As soon as a player has an idea, he's going to say it immediately, and then it's up for the in-game leader to shut it down or to go with it. And I think he was very skilled in that sense, but he was also just a good leader outside of the game. If he felt someone was treated badly, he defended them. And it could be, someone from the tournament talking, saying to the device that he had to do content when he was sick, Glaive would immediately go up and say, hey, you can't demand that for him. Take me instead, It was like really defending and being a good leader towards his teammates, both on and off the server.
There's a story I want to confirm with you if it's true or not, which is because Glaive was almost like an impossibly good fragger for an IGL. Like I always say, like it's one thing if Blame F's an IGL now, he IGLs, but he's also clearly like a guy who knows how to frag and he knows his positions and what. But the difference is Glaive was like sometimes the entry player, and he was a guy who would have tournaments that didn't even make sense, like that Beijing one where he was the MVP. Like those numbers, like a star player would be happy with those numbers. So there was a story I heard, I wanted to see if it's true or not, which says that there were times where in practices Zonic would just call and then Glaive would play the spot, but he wouldn't play it as an IGL. He'd sort of like just practice his fragging. Is this true? Is this like an approach you guys took?
Yeah, I would say I think I pretty much called 50% of our practice from mid 18 till the end of my time in Astralis. I think there were several layers to it. Obviously, there was the thing about Glaive can concentrate more on his own play, but there was also the narrative that and also my fault. I think I ran the players too hard in Astralis. I learned that in Vitality. Also from seeing the French way of doing it. In Astralis, we had one day off during the week.
Okay.
Yes, in Vitality we had 2. We started playing on Sunday, and we had we also played on Friday. I think we had Saturday off in Astralis, and that was it. And we had boot camps, and if we lost a tournament, I could easily call them to go boot camping. There was all the whole thing, with the whole thing with Astralis, contract negotiations that went south. I don't think I need to go into details with that, but that's, we didn't have the best, agent. I mean, he was really good when it came to negotiating from our side of things, getting the best deal, getting the best salary and all these things. But when it came to building a relationship between the team and the players, the coach, that was very that was very lacking in that sense. Right. That created some frustrations. And just to answer your question, I mean, it took a lot of energy out of the players. And eventually, as you also saw, they had to take a medical leave, him and Civics, and that was just it's. I know you guys also have a big narrative around the Astralis time, and there are definitely some fault with Astralis, but I would also say we were not perfect in that fight as well.
Fair enough.
I think that's fair to say. We had an agent who represented us in a way that kind of forced Astralis' hands, like they were tied.
Right.
they couldn't do shit.
Let me ask you this way though, like by the way, spoiler, anything I do in my solo videos or a talk show is different than an interview. Like the interview is about your answer, it's about what you want to say. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. But I would ask you along these lines then, because that does tie into something I did want to ask about. Now look, obviously on shows like By the Numbers, it's mainly Casper who took all the blame for this. Because to be fair, that was also part of his role. His role was he was the one announcing all this stuff and saying, you know, we're going to do the 10-man rotation and whatever device can't travel this much or whatever. But my question, because it sounds like you yourself were involved with this, is a lot of people, I think the reason they have like negative feelings towards him is they feel like when this Astralis team came back after that initial blast period, when you guys that won the major again and beat Liquid and got back on top, people remember how insane the work rate was. Like just the events, because you were always in the semis. So like every event, you were traveling, you were playing almost maximum number of days. So at the time, the premise goes, people think Casper basically burned the players out. Like it sounds like you also take some responsibility in that. Like you also essentially you just didn't ever let your foot off the pedal, as it say, right? You're just trying to win the whole time, every time.
Yeah, I mean, I had one solution to whenever things were not working correctly, and that was to work harder and to go on the server and fix stuff. And I could not imagine that, okay, we need to improve our Be an Inferno. Okay, let's take 2 days off. I mean, that just didn't ring a bell in my head at all. That is something that I've learned. I mean, you need time off. You need to spend time with your family. In Vitality, we have 2 days off, you know, during the weekend. We even sometimes take days off, you know, after tournaments. We need to have 2 blocks of 3, 4, 5 days during, you know, a season where we take some time off. And we also did that towards the end in Astralis. I think, yes, Casper had his way of doing stuff, but I also think he was also answering to somebody, because the Casper I knew was all in on performance. From the day that I met him, I learned a lot of my way of seeing the game, and at least outside of the game, I learned from him. The way he saw things, you know, the way he approached the game, you know, being professional, you know. I think it's unfair to give all the blame to him. He was also answering stuff, and yes, towards the end with Astralis, it became too much focus on commercial side of things than performance. And some of the things that I heard Casper say, you know, was like I couldn't recognize him. You know, he was this handball goalkeeper playing for the national team. I've seen clips of him going absolutely crazy because people didn't fight for a 5th spot instead of didn't fight for a 5th spot at a European Championship because they were like, we're already out anyways, but we have to play for this like seeding spot or whatever. And they didn't give a fuck, and he was just going crazy when he was a goalkeeper. So I was like, the Casper I knew didn't do that. When it comes to, just by being completely transparent, when it comes to his conversations with the players, whenever they wanted to take a medical leave, I have no idea about how that went.
Fair enough.
So that I can answer.
Okay. By the way, obviously there is also that weird period. I'll ask you about it now. What was that period where in early 2019, it wasn't really that you only played Blast. It just so happened at the time all the Blast schedule was for those months. It's just that you did basically skip, like you said, the first couple of events that Liquid won on the Grand Slam, and that set up this whole narrative of like Liquid was number one and is Astralis getting back. But because the thing is, to me, it can't be that people were totally happy with how this went. Because I remember when the team came back and wasn't winning initially, that was when there was all those clips like device punching a monitor and debris raging out of some stuff. So clearly there was friction there. What actually happened there? Was the idea like we just rest them because they're like burned out from the year before? Was there a moment when it was like, right, we have to actually go full blast because Liquid's on top again? How did the whole thing work out? It seemed pretty messy.
We had to. I remember that we had to, you know, think about how we were approaching the rest of 2019, because it was getting to a boiling point with some of the players, and I can't remember if Device also starting to show things, and also negotiations, and it was just a big mess. So I think obviously we tried to win. I mean, whenever we ended, we lost in, was it in Montpellier, I think, against Liquid. We got destroyed. It was one of the first time they won a best of 3 against us, except for in the tournament in January. We tried our best every single time, but it was just, we had this, every time we started the season, we decided which tournaments we want to peak at. And it was always Katowice, Cologne was and obviously the major was in the spring, and then you would have obviously Copenhagen, the fall finals of Blast,
sure.
And then maybe some other tournaments along with the major as well. But I think the major was usually in the beginning of the season, so it was September, October. So you had had these 2 tournaments, and that was pretty much a ongoing thing. And obviously, we talk about choking. We definitely did that in Copenhagen every single fucking time we choked in Copenhagen.
Sure.
Then we went to Beijing, so everything that we actually prepped on was then truly coming on in Beijing. I remember traveling straight from Copenhagen to Beijing to play IM China. I think I can't remember. IM Beijing, yeah. And yeah, I think it was. You see top teams nowadays. I think FaZe is a good example. I won't take in Navi as well because of the circumstances with the war. You never know what could have happened with that team. But it is very difficult keeping players motivated, hungry throughout so much time. And I think, except for the thing with Device in 17, I would say that our time at least started in the beginning of 17, winning the major, playing more consistently, going to the semifinal of the next major, winning in 18, at least the one in the second one. The first one, we got horribly our ass kicked, but that was also after Device came back from his medical leave. But it was tough, and at some point we just had to take a bit more of a step back. We didn't practice that much. I was calling maybe all our practices during that period. And then we knew, okay, we need to do that. And then when it comes to the major, we also expect, and that was the talking that I did, we can do this because I was listening to the players saying, I'm feeling really exhausted. I'm really tired. And I said, okay, we can stop practicing or taking one more day off and we can do this. But then I expect you to be fully ready for after the summer break. There's no excuses. We go all in. We practice, we boot camp, and we get ready for the major. And that was the how it was going back in 19.
Go on.
Yeah, but the whole thing with Astralis, let's just take it up. Now I can say it now, officially not being part of Astralis.
Okay.
From my point of view, it was so annoying being part of both companies, because what it ultimately meant was that every small decision from, sometimes the practice rooms are not the same size. You would always get the shit one. Sometimes
because they didn't want to seem biased, right?
Yes.
I see, right.
Sometimes there is something, about the scheduling. We get the worst flights or the worst time of the the call times. So when we are playing, it was just they wanted to do everything they could not to associate anything, and also content-wise, we maybe had to do something to brand blast. Some of the key team managers or whatever was working both with Blast and Astralis, and they were suddenly not available to us anymore because they were busy preparing for this big tournament that they had, and it was just annoying to be quite frank. Obviously to listen to the community, but more importantly that we couldn't go out and say, hey, it's actually fair that this time we get this, or our practice room is way too small compared to the standards or whatever it is. We couldn't really complain at all.
Right, couldn't vent. Right, yeah, makes sense. Yeah. By the way, I have to ask it this way, because even though it's why I actually got mad triggered where when you guys won the Starladder Berlin major, people just made the story like, oh, they were just always on top and they won all the majors in a row. And they made it sound like there was no down period like this where you guys went off and Liquid became number one. I've always thought this actually in some ways is the coolest major win of all, because if people forget, you hadn't won an event for months and months. It was way back like a Blast. I think it was that Blast you won over Liquid. Way back was the last tournament win. And obviously they just won Cologne, which was like epic. You guys were in the semis against Vitality. And then people always forget at the major, dude. That Swiss system was really sketchy for you and Liquid. Like, you guys almost lost to the fucking crazy team with Hunter and Nexa and all those guys. Like, to me, that was like a tournament where you didn't come in as the favourite. I think during the Swiss system, you weren't even the best team. It's almost like match by match. The team just worked its way back into form. And by the end of the tournament, in the final, it was easy. You just won easily over a Vanguard. Like, that sounds like a really crazy event. Can you give me some stories or some of the behind the scenes? Like was this a tournament you guys thought you were going to win this one? Were you set for it? What happened?
I think I on my personal inside of myself, I was like, holy shit, was this it? Like, because we hadn't won, as you said, a tournament for a long time. But as soon as I talked with the boys, it was like, guys, this is just according to plan. everything that we worked on the past 3 weeks, now we got to rest it. Everyone is ready, and that was something that happened with especially Glaive actually when it came to these big tournaments. If he was out of energy, he would definitely give everything he had during those tournaments. Whether it was Blast in Copenhagen, the Grand Slam that we won at Odense, the Berlin Major, maybe not so much that one, but it was tournaments where he was, extremely exhausted just before the tournament. But as soon as that kicked in, he would just be, transforming, and that would just, boost his teammates to an extent where everyone was like, okay, we're back. And let's continue like we always did. And I tried to be there, make sure everything was in order, make sure our playbook was right. I've been making sure everything is spotless when it comes to not forgetting strats, because we didn't practice that much sometimes. So I needed to pinpoint and make sure that everything was in order. Needed to figure out the maps. Where I remember when we went to these Blast group stage back then, you had to play, what was it, 5 best of ones. Yes. You had to do the veto, and in the beginning you had to do the veto on time, so we had to do it before. So we didn't even practice all our map pool. We just practiced those that was according to our
right, what you were going to veto down to, yeah.
Yeah, but we actually, to some extent, they at some point they changed it, so you had to do the veto 2 days, two weeks, right, before. But in the beginning, you had to do it just straight on. Right. So I had to look at all the teams, and then if you're only practicing 2 or 3 times a week, I need to make sure, okay, this is the permaban, and this is what they do. They probably don't want to play this map against us, and then okay, it's down to these 3 or 4 maps that we have to play. And then we just didn't play anything else. And then good luck in the grand final in case we went there, and then hopefully we could just do it anyways. But yeah, I tried my best in that sense. But I think from mid 18, it was fun. It was really tough, but it was also a big mess. It was a lot of problems with players, organization, contract negotiations. It was a tough period.
Since obviously beating Liquid at this tournament also sort of defined that, like, over the 2 years, aside from that one time, a couple of times, like you said, Astralis nearly always did beat Team Liquid. It's funny because there's so many layers you can look at a matchup on. Like, obviously, if you look tactically, there's all sorts of interesting factors. Like, they don't really have a strong primary AWPer. They're like a rifle-only team. If you look at the map pool, famously, they nearly always had the same map pool as you guys, which obviously didn't help them out because essentially whatever they picked is probably one of the maps you like Inferno or something. So, but at the same time, though, to me, you can just take the bigger narrative of, like, to me, there was like a psychological difference between these two teams, because I've seen that Liquid team where they would play like Simple and Na'Vi or FaZe Clan and Carrigan. Like, they would look awesome then, dude. They would be blowing them out the server. When they played against your team, it's like I always thought it looked like your players just knew they were going to win the game. Like, in the move, their moves are so much more confident. It always feels like you're going to catch like them on a rotation, or we'll at the end of the round when we're in a 3v3, we'll just like stay together and punish the mistake or something. Can you give me a sense? Was it when you would play them? Were there ever times you actually thought they're going to beat us, or we're not informed today? Do you always have a sense we control the game against Liquid?
It's not to sound cocky or anything, but I felt like it was one of the teams that was not easy to read, but maybe it was also just because we played them so many times. But it was definitely not a big challenge like it was with the likes of FaZe Clan, for example. They were switching up a little bit, or the Na'Vi, where you didn't really know exactly, like, it was going really slow paced. They didn't really have executes. I think it was more, it was a bit more easier with Liquid, that they were taking fights and they were coming, and you knew, like, playstyle wise how you were supposed to handle them. And then, as you said, I think Device always played good against Liquid. So for me, it was just unleashing him, and they didn't really have proper answer except for Nitro. With all respect for him, I mean, it was yeah. I think sometimes I'm a little bit surprised how good they were against other teams, but obviously it's also a mental thing, and how flat they sometimes came into the games against us, even though they were exciting, a lot of them. I mean, they came close, and I remember in Odense when they removed Duke, I think it was, and we said, okay, let's just punish them like we always. That was always like our philosophy. If people, we also picked Cash, I think, against Na'Vi at some point in one of the last tournaments. That was like we will have to pick their permaban if they decide to ban one of the Nuke / Inferno thing. So we picked train and we lost it, but we came back and won anyways. But that was a little bit scary. But I think the only time I was a bit scared of them was most likely at the Berlin major, because they did play it really good. They had a really good one, and they were like, "We're gonna win this one." And yeah, I remember Twist after they lost. He said, "What's going down in New York was where we're gonna win this one." I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
He said that in the post game interview. So they were still a bit cocky after they lost to us, though.
By the way, obviously, when it comes to Astralis, you can choose what to say, but I would just ask one last question about Astralis before we just move on and do some Vitality stuff. The question goes like this. The way that you guys left Astralis, obviously you, Magus, and Dupree went as like a package to Vitality, but I remember around that time, the rumour I heard was that there was even a bunch of other, I won't say which orgs, but there was other orgs might have gotten this trio of players, maybe it was all a package or whatever. But the thing that I always found a bit confusing, I want to ask you about is, I won't say they were like rude when you left the team, but for someone who won as much as you did playing in their team, I kind of just expected them to do kind of a bit more. Like, you know, in English we say like fanfare. Like, I'd have had a big thing, like I'm not like a fucking statue, obviously not that ridiculous, but like I'd have had like a big video and a whole thing like, oh, thanks for like all the major. It felt a bit kind of just a bit like, oh, see ya. Did you get a sense of that at all?
With Astralis, yeah.
Were they a bit salty or something that you left? What was it?
No, but it was a salty period. So the thing was, yes, I mean, just to explain it for everyone to understand, Astralis wanted to get rid of because all the players, including myself, had somewhat similar salaries and same expiration date, or what you call it, like.
Right. Yes.
Yes, for a team to function, to have players where you from one day to the other can lose the entire team. That is in the past, you know. That's in when we were playing, and you know all these things. You have the Polish guys just switching off 1 year to the other. Astralis wanted to get rid of that scenario, and the players obviously it meant that they would have to give up power in some sense, and then didn't want to get rid of that. So the agent that we had, he famously decided together with Astralis that if someone needed to have decision power over the roster, it would be Zonic, the coach, as the middleman in some sense. Long story short, it was very difficult for us to, you know, find a proper way of, and it became ugly to some point where Astralis wanted me to just get rid of one player, and I didn't want to, because, you know, I had the agent at the other side saying, if you do that, the players will lose all the power, and the Astralis team can just do whatever they want with the team. And that was very difficult. And that is also why I think Astralis tried in every fashion that they could to fix the team by, you know, having Casper talk about 10-player roster and, you know, all these things, you know, to try and I think they just did what they could in order for the company to survive, because no matter what, we were by far the biggest asset on that team, and probably also the reason why they ever got to exist in on the long term. But for me, it was just, that's why I mean that it's not just their fault, you know, it's mutual. We all made mistake, and I think it became ugly, and I became a little bit the scapegoat, you know, towards the end. When Device left, obviously that broke the circle for the players, and that's also why the team got split up. And I think Astralis, in the meantime, was a bit angry with me in that sense, because to some extent I have been trying to keep the core, because I just wanted to win, and I knew. But back then I had the strong belief that we just need to keep the players together. And Astralis wanted to get rid of that, because our agent could just destroy them in every negotiations that there were. I have a good relationship with a lot of the people in Astralis, I would say, a lot of the workers there, and I have no bad regrets with my time there. I enjoyed my time in Astralis. Will always be my home. But yes, it was a complicated situation with both parties having fault in this.
By the way, when Device went to NIP and they infamously published that vlog from day one, like, look, sadly, because I know him, I know that, like, what he was actually trying to do there was sort of just hype his teammates up, and they're obviously, like, think about it, some of those are, like, Swedish players that have never won anything, mate. So he's trying to tell them sort of, like, almost the idea of, like, I'm going to bring the culture, you know, like, if we just do this, that, and the other, you win tournaments, next thing you know, you've got an era. The problem is, though, it did make it sound like he was just salty about you guys, and he was, like, dumpstering you all. Like, it made it sound like Astralis did fuck all. Like, did that piss you off when you heard that? Did it get to you a bit?
Yes, I got totally mad. But I also got mad when he told us he was going to leave.
All right.
I got so crazy at the office, like, you know, went down. I was like yelling and screaming, and I was really pissed. But no, I think after when I saw this video, yes, I got angry again. Because I was like, how dare you, you ungrateful little shit, you know? Everything we've done, you said, NIP is 5 steps ahead. You've been there for 2 days. I mean, what if it was just random what we did? I mean, working so many hours, and I immediately had a talk with him. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And he told me that he just, you know, it was nothing bad. He was like, you know, he didn't expect the camera to be there, and he was just, you know, just trying to be nice towards his new organization. And, you know, it's just one of those days where you should just have maybe not reacted just straight away after you watched the video. I immediately wrote to him, and it was just that was a bad move. But inside of me, I knew that he was not saying that for him to just piss us off. I mean, I think either he didn't know there was a camera, or he was just not expected, and it was just getting caught off guard and just trying to say something nice, and then he accidentally tried to make us look like fools.
Because one of the reasons I ask that question, though, is it actually does bring up what I think is a pretty relevant topic, which is when you took the gig to go to Vitality, look, getting ZywOo was pretty good as well. Like, we already knew he was pretty good. But at the same time, that's a gamble, dude. Like, in that scenario, like, if you just retire, no one ever can say anything about your career. You've got the most insane coach resume ever. Also, if you just stay in a Danish team, people would be like, well, you know, it's a different part of his career. He's working with different players. I actually think by going to that team, though, that essentially it asked the question when Device went to NIP, like, who were the best ones in Astralis? Like, are they actually all really truly world class? Is this guy only good if he's with this player or with this IGL or this AWPer? It was some of that behind why you did the Vitality move. Did you want to sort of prove I can do it with different players? I mean, obviously you still had to bring Megas, but it's still different from Glaive and Zipnix and Device.
It became like that. I think initially when I started coaching, I was like, I'm gonna stay in Astralis for 20 years, just like be the CS version of Sir Alex Ferguson. Changing, you know, yes, back then he had Device, now he has 5 new players, and he's winning a major again, because I think that's similar to you know, it's still a different team. But obviously everything that we talked about before went down. We lost Device. I was asking for a replacement, and with all due respect, I mean, I was getting Farley and Acor. Acor was not performing that well at that time. And I was like, well, okay, if it's ever time to try something else, I mean, now is the time. I think I've accomplished what I could with Astralis. And, you know, the mood was not the best. They also, you know, tried to sign Hunden at one point, you know. So for me, it was just, okay, now it's time for me to go somewhere else. And I think, you know, coming into that team was definitely, you know, motivation of, now you did it with the Danish roster. A lot of us, you know, consider Astralis being the GOAT of CSGO. Why not try and challenge yourself and do it with an international roster? Because at that time, no one had won the major.
Yes,
obviously my good old friend in Garrigan came before me, but that was, you know, my initial goal was to be the first international team to win a major. But yeah, we won, but Garrigan came first, and yeah, that was the ultimate goal.
By the way, for that first year, the 2022 year, like, obviously we can't skip that. Like, it was a fucking rough year. Like, that was the year when, like, making one blast final is like a good result. Like, that would be like a bad result in Astralis. You know what I mean? That would be like we had an off day then. Like, was that hard to swallow going to a team? By the way, when you get a player like ZywOo, you know how like media scrutiny is. If you have a player like that, you're not allowed to lose. You're supposed to win every single game because everyone knows he's awesome. So it must be your fault if you lose, right? So was that first year, again, was it like Astralis? Did you ever wonder if they're going to fire me? Do I actually get to even see this project out?
No, I wasn't worried about that, because I think obviously it's 4 majors more, and, you know, my time, and I think that has been classic in both Vitality and Astralis. I always had bad starts in both teams.
Right.
And then after that, figuring out or whatever, then, it's not like I'm not trying to, start off like, winning big tournaments from the beginning, but it just takes time because I want to, figure out what's going on. And I remember Apex was in your video, talking about that it was me trying to, implement the Astralis way. I think to be honest, we all had so many things we needed to, to look at. You had ZywOo, who didn't, speak English as properly as he's doing now. You had, the role issues with Basuta and Dupree, and you had, to be fair, also maybe Dupree and Magic not grinding as hard as I expected them to do in 22. And for me, it was just I don't regret 22 at all. I think everything that we built for 23 came from all the, I would rather fail fast and then, come back to win later than, trying to just, make small solutions here and there. I think we all, me, Matt, and Dan, tried from the beginning to, I didn't feel like it was just Apex who was like, okay, now I'm tired of your way, Matt and Sonic. Now I'm going to do it my way, and then everything clicked. I mean, he had a say from the beginning as well, and I think we all tried to figure out how the right way was to play for us, and we tried to play fast, we tried to play slow, and yeah, I think everyone had a say of all three of us. So it was a tough year, but I mean, there's a saying that trees don't grow into heaven. I mean, you also need to, we learned from our mistakes, and we found ourselves, and we had to make a change. And when we made the change, we won EPL a few months later, and then we had a dip again, and then we had a strong talk with the Danes in the end of 22, and I think they transformed into the better in 23, and they did phenomenal. And also credit to Lars coming full time in from 23 with Vitality, also did something, that is by far the toughest task I've ever had to do. You are just had a shit year, actually 2 shit years. It was also shit in 21 with Astralis. You get to know that the major is in Paris. Vitality was all over us, the whole staff they were all over us about they really wanted to win, so they tried, to do everything they could, but in theory, they just needed us to believe in the project and just leave us alone, give us, silence to work. But they tried their best, to make sure everything was right. So props to them for providing that. But it was very stressful, and probably the biggest challenge I've faced. There was not a lot of hours that went by not thinking, breathing, or living CS. Those 5-6 months, we spent so many hours. Either watching, rewatching, talking, trying to calm the players down. It was a tough task.
There's a piece of trivia about this major that when I heard, like, this sounds like some out of a movie, mate, this can't be real, which is that the actual venue that you won the CS major with Vitality in was the one where you lost at fucking ESWC all those years ago to the Poles.
Oh, was it the one we lost?
I think
yes.
The one that you lost from them away.
Yes.
Said, I think it was Cuban told me, like, that makes it sound like, do you believe in destiny, dude? Like, that sounds like some out of a movie, like I said. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. I thought it was the one we won in 2008, but yeah, that's true. I remember Cuban, he tweeted that as well. Yeah, that's true. That's crazy. And I remember my wife, she told me that I've been here before.
Oh, right.
She came, to watch the grand final with my kids, and it was just, and I was like, yeah, but we haven't been here before. I couldn't remember it when she said it, but yeah, she remembered. There was like outside of the arena, there was like some grass going up, and it was just going up on the building, and it was just, I couldn't remember it, to be honest, until someone told me.
By the way, you actually referenced this earlier, but you actually have stolen my ground. But I want to ask the question anyway, which is. This is like, first of all, I mean, you've been around long enough, mate. Everyone who's a fan of a player who's really good, it's like Messi and Ronaldo. They don't really go, well, respectfully, I think Messi is the best, but Ronaldo's really good. They go, Messi's really good and Ronaldo sucks. And then Ronaldo fan goes, yeah, but Messi was just on Barcelona. How fans are. They have to argue that way. So everyone thinks I'm a ZywOo hater. I think it's the opposite, dude. You referenced it earlier. And this might sound mad. He is insanely good. But I actually do think, like you said, I think there's another level he can still go to, dude. Like, I actually think, by the way, if he actually might be the best player in any game ever if he does it. And like you say, it's bizarre because normally people like Simple, and they're considered to have big egos, and it's the other way around. You're trying to get them to play for the team. Everyone tells me who's his teammate. He has the opposite problem. He's too unselfish in a way. Like, you actually kind of do want him to be like, give me the resources, let me carry, right?
Yeah, I had a huge discussion with the team in Abu Dhabi after the World Finals in 22, because I straight up looked at ZywOo and I said, "You're wasting your career," and it was front of the whole team, and he was like, "Well, like, what do you mean?" And for me, I want you to demand more of your teammates if you feel like, because he was grinding a lot, and if you feel like your teammates is not, putting in the proper work, then why the fuck are you not saying anything? Because he was just like, whenever time we lost the tournament, I'd fine, guys, we have it next time. We win next time. And I wanted him to know, because yes, I might have won 4 majors at that time, but it doesn't hit as hard if it's fucking ZywOo coming to, matches saying, hey, I don't care how many majors you won, but you need to step up, if it was him. But it was just, and I remember, I actually think I used the narrative that I want you to be more like Simple, not in a, and then,
Sure.
Simple has a reputation for being toxic, but, he will demand something from his teammates. He don't want to lose. He doesn't accept that. And I remember messaging, was like, his reaction was that, but you don't want him to be toxic, and because I think that was what he felt that I meant.
Right.
I was like, no, but just let me finish my talk here with Matu. That's what we call him, ZywOo. And it was just, I knew how much talent this guy had. And I knew how much he can also, affect his teammates by being after them if they're not performing. And for me, it was I was just missing this, not being toxic or, frustrated all the time or complaining or anything, but just, demanding more from his own team. And for me, he has a huge talent, but talent only gets you a certain step. This guy has the most insane, game sense, knowing stuff, the amount of time he has been sitting careful, somewhere, and someone just comes, because he has to put all the pieces together. It's difficult to describe, and I think that's also because I also paid attention to when you guys were talking about him and some others as well, the narrative, because some of it is justified. He doesn't always, have these big carry games in playoffs. He can definitely improve. And he needs to be more, he can be more professional in some areas. But the talent that he has, it's unbelievable. But I've talked so many times with, Lars and our sports psychologists. If you can just trigger that, talent to the next level, I'm scared to even know what that can bring. But on a lone base in 22, I was definitely scared to, pushing him too much, because I was like, he's pretty good as it is right now. Shouldn't touch too much about his stuff. But in 23, I got a little bit more, I had a little bit more courage with him, and I wanted to push him a little bit more. And I think it helped throughout I think he matured a lot, doing more interviews and speaking up, and he was getting more frustrated. And it was good to see that he was not just settling with whenever we lost the game. He was complaining, and I like that.
By the way, on the idea that like the style wasn't like a direct contrast from Astralis through to Vitality, a question I would have is, I've often wondered actually if you have a similar issue that I know Blade has had in Na'Vi, which is, I actually do agree, if you notice I'm quite biased to the tactical style. I think if you can actually like map the game out and everyone knows their role and the timings, I actually think it is the best way to play Counter-Strike, because it's the most beautiful, the way it fits together, it makes more out of the team than the individual play, all the cliches everyone's heard. But the problem, and this is why I give the example of Blade, is I do feel like if you ever have a lineup though where it's like you have like 3 players could do that style but then like 2 can't, it just doesn't work. Like, it'll actually look bad sometimes. You'll look like you're doing bad calls, whereas maybe it's the right call but the player doesn't understand it, or it's not his style of play. And I've heard that in the Vitality team, it does look like the team does have its best success when it plays a bit more up tempo, a bit fast, essentially sort of lets people have a bit more freedom. Whereas like, I'm sure with your old Astralis team, it was probably correct to always make some of the decisions you made. Has it been hard to sort of like give up the reins a little bit and let people just make more plays instead of like doing the perfect play?
Yes, both yes and no. I definitely think that was some of the learning things that we did in 22. You could easily see that, if you're playing more slow, you need to have more agreements. There's a high chance the initiative will come from your opponents that you will have to react to. And then again, you need to be better at communicating, and I think for that it just did not. And I think that's in general for a lot of international teams. They need to play a bit more faster than national teams, because you cannot rely too much on communication, team play, because it's not really going to be there. I mean, some of the things that I saw in Vitality, I was just super excited. I was like, wow, it's so good. It only came occasionally, but in Astralis it came all the time. And I think also you saw it with Heroic, some of the team play that they showed, especially on the CT side, with the rotations, all seems just spot on. Probably did a bit too much, but we tried to copy that as well in Vitality, and it's just so much more difficult. Because you don't want the ZywOo to be able to talk and ask for a flash and do this and that. You just want him to give him full freedom, get a couple of kills, and then you can take the next step afterwards. But you need to play a lot more on your own premises when you're an international team. Play on your strength and be the initiator, if that makes sense. Both on CT and T. You also saw that with us in Vitality, when we had our best games. It was when we were not just sitting back and waiting, because suddenly you get uncertain and try to implement some of the stuff in Astralis, the communications things that we have, and I think that actually worked really well. So if it becomes too quiet on the map, you need to have the ifs, as I called it. So if they do this, I have first contact. Right. If they do this, you do this. It cannot be too quiet on TeamSpeak. And I think that one we tried to implement. So I think we, especially in 23, I think team play wise, at least some period of the year, I think we capped what we could with this team. I mean, we couldn't get it any better, but you need to play a lot faster when you are an international team, and you also see that with ENCE and FaZe and all these teams. They have to go more aggressive.
Right, one of the last questions I have is obviously going to be about Falcons, since this is the team you're now going to work with. Now, at the time of this interview, technically no one signed except Megaskin Zonic and Lars Robel. That's the only people, so we're not going to speculate about who might be. But the question I have goes like this, Sonic. Essentially, it's a bit of a layup question, but I'm going to set it up like this. I actually feel like a lot of the response to you has been pretty harsh. Like, people have been like, oh, he's just selling out for money, or like, what the hell, doesn't he care about Vitality? But I actually, when I saw your interview comments about why you made this move, I also know some things behind the scenes about some of the people who might be joining the team, let's say, and I've heard some stories from them. And basically, I actually totally understand why you might do this too. So I want to ask you this from this perspective. Because everyone thinks you just did it for money. When you said it's not for money, they're all just like, whatever, who believes that, But actually, when you were describing like what it would allow you to do as like a long-term project, I think that is really misunderstood by fans. Like, we've talked about this interview. Dude, even if you're the best coach ever, even if you win the major, if you have a couple of majors you don't win, in most teams you're fired, that's it. Or, you get these players given to you and you just have to make it work. Even if that player, like you're saying about some of the ones we've given examples of, maybe like Farley can't be Device. He just isn't. Like, it doesn't matter what you do as a coach, he's never going to be Device and win the MVP of the major. So like in that scenario, again, if that doesn't work out, you get fired again, or you don't get the player you want. The things I've heard about the Falcons org that do sound like I can see why you'd be up for it is, one, I've heard like you just get a way bigger actual like up ramp to get good, basically. Like, you don't have to win the first major. It's more like, let's establish a team, let's get into the leagues, let's qualify to a major, and then maybe you have like a couple of years. Also, it was implied to me that when you do this project, it's not like, right, here's your lineup, make it work or you're fired. It's more like, right, here's the first lineup, but you know what, maybe in the future we can bring you this player and we can build the team up. Is some of this hitting the wheelhouse of why you wanted to do the move?
Definitely, but I'll also say that my first priority was to extend with Vitality.
Okay.
But getting into into negotiations with Vitality in the beginning of after the major, pretty much. It was just I think overall, including prize pool and all these things, it was a 60-70% salary reduction from what I had. I informed it that I was willing to go down in salary, but obviously not that much. I think I was, because I knew that there was issues, and I totally get that there's
it's across the whole scene at the moment, right? Like, if people don't know, a lot of teams are cutting salaries and there's not as much money available. I
think I informed my agent that I'm willing to go down like 20%.
Right.
Overall, despite winning, that was the only task I was giving, win a major within 2 years. I think I've made pretty good decisions, when it comes to transfers, with Spinks and Flames. I think that's a well-known thing. Obviously, we went down in salary twice during my time, and that was because I didn't feel like I deserved my salary. I wanted to win, and that was part of getting Spinks and getting Lars on a full-time. I felt like I did what I could to contribute, and we just couldn't find each other, me and Vitality. It was not. I have nothing bad to say against them. I understand. I think the only thing was that it was a bit harsh the way they, started out the negotiations. A little bit disrespectful, in my opinion. But yeah, no. Then after some time, they encouraged me to look elsewhere because they didn't, they couldn't, believe that I could get a decent offer or a good offer or similar offer somewhere else. And I just got a lot of offers, to be honest, for like 4 or 5 teams. Some of them established, and then Falcons, who wasn't established. What attracted me about Falcons was definitely the whole thing about, here you have the keys. Win us a major. How you do it, how you want to do it, it's fine. But that doesn't mean, the keys in, okay, let's spend 10 million euros on ZywOo and then get him. Because then what a big of a challenge would that be? But it's just, of course, I'm a competitive. So if I could get the whole Vitality squad in instant, okay, we continue. Everyone gets a fair paycheck and money is not an issue for our future project. But for me, it was, the whole thing about working together with Lars. We always been part of a system in Astralis, always been part of a system in Vitality. Here we can, because we have, and that goes more for Lars, I would say. We are a really strong team. I mean, we've been working together since Astralis. When I left Astralis, he contacted me and saying, hey, I contacted him saying, I just want to say thank you for our cooperation. I've really enjoyed working with you. And he said, where are you going? And I never thought, because part of the issues that we had with Astralis, he was, being loyal to Astralis. He didn't really seem like a guy that would continue working with me. So I was like, really surprised when he said to me, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to go somewhere else. And he was just like, I want to continue working with you. And then ever since that, we've just been, but also in Astralis. But I was just happy that he wanted to leave Astralis to come with me to Vitality. And yeah, the things that he can, work on from a professional side. We can have an office. We can have, a physiotherapist working with the team when we are traveling.
I heard they can also offer like infrastructure, like build up facilities and stuff, right? And potentially in Denmark, maybe give you some shit, right? So you'll be at home, right?
We are looking for Denmark, but nothing is certain
fair enough,
because but it's more because Denmark is in the EU, so it could also be UK.
I see, right? Okay.
If we get plays from outside of EU, but there's nothing to say that CS can't be in Copenhagen. And it's just, having that freedom where you can, if they see a good investment in, the facilities, the professional side, because that is also why I don't, talk trash about Kasper Hvidt from Astralis, because I fucking loved all the good things that he did for the players, with the, whenever there was someone who was sick, even I had some problems, there was instant, an appointment to a doctor, probably because he also had some connections being, on a national team in handball. But he was just, really good at taking care of that side of the players' health here now. And for me to just have Lars, fully commit, because he's been talking so many times that he wants to implement this and that, and the teams can't really, they can't really afford it, which is fair. But it's just, giving that key to the team and the belief, and they didn't want to, the whole thing with Nico. Obviously, it was, as I think it's well known now, it was Nico who approached Falcons in the beginning, but Falcons didn't want to pursue it because they want to start, with the coach and the head of performance before they started with the players. And when you just look at Astralis, for example, they get 5 players and then they hire Kasper Straube from Heroic after all the players have been bought. And it's just, for me, I just prefer it the other way around, where, the team goes for the coach first, he sets the team, and then it's also my responsibility. But my initial idea was I tried to extend with Vitality for several months.
Right. One of the last questions then is going to be this. When you say it that way, I know what you mean, but it sounds a bit disturbing when you were like, and I didn't think I deserved my salary because I didn't win. Like, on the one hand, Sonic, some people would say that's unhealthy. You should always like have self-esteem and feel like I'm doing a good job. But at the same time, I imagine to win that many times. Like, I've known a lot of pro players. Dude, some of them, 1 major's enough. They go, oh, I've done it. I've completed, Whereas, like, I've always thought, like, the cool thing is to be able to come back and do it again, to find a way to still have the motivation, to be on top still, to be the best, to counter the opponent. Like, Zonic still needs to do that in CS2, right? The drive's still there to win now. Is that still your identity? Is you're going to be a winner?
Yeah, and I think it's because I'm very pessimistic as a person.
Okay.
I always feel like we can do better. I'm not good enough. We cannot just, I don't even, consider myself as a, GOAT coach or whatever, because I want to see, but Blade, he's doing this and that. And,
okay.
Yeah, but he has a worse team. He's fucking underrated as well. It's just for me, it can always be better. And for me, I cannot. Then I just set the next goal for me, and that is to win a major in CS2. Then I can consider starting to call me the GOAT. But I think that's also why I've become tireless, because I've never really get satisfied. But I'm very pessimistic. But that also means that I most often gets the job done. But the people around me, the ones who are closest to me, they often gets to hear me, complain and lack of confidence and what have I done and is this the right move and is this the right thing and my wife plays a big part in calming me down. But yeah, it's not something I tell the players. For the players, I'm just full confidence. But for me personally, I have some inner demons where I'm not talking shit about myself. I acknowledge everything that I've done and I'm super proud of it. But it's good for me not to never it can always do better and the 5 majors doesn't mean shit. It's now it's CS2. I have 0 majors in CS2.
One thing I always find weird about like just the experience of being human is I find when something's even like 3 or 4 years away from me, it starts to feel way more distant. And like, for example, like I don't do the events anymore. It doesn't even feel like I did the events. It feels like that was like a different guy who just looked like me. It was like years and years ago, right? So what I want to ask is this. Bearing in mind, in this story, you didn't even start coaching Astralis till 2016 when the team was made, and then the team won the first major in 2017. Like, this is a long time in your career before actually the most successful period of your life, basically, has been this last part. It's like the last 4 or 5 years. Does it feel surreal how much you actually did accomplish in CSGO? When you look back now, all those tournaments, all those finals, all the like, it's impossible almost the number, right?
Yeah, but I think it's just... I don't really think too much about it. I think maybe afterwards I will maybe, reflect and look back and be super proud of what I have achieved together with all the players. They definitely deserve all the credit as well. But I think for me, it's just, I love doing this. And as you know, I've been here for so many years, but I would just, I just don't get tired of doing it. I think obviously I get tired in moments and get, I question myself whether it was the right move to bench Dupree or to join Falcons or, whatever it is. I mean, I will always have these thoughts, but I just keep working and it just motivates me. And I'm super happy where I am in my career and for this next challenge. But I'm also looking into, that's also part of the reason for doing this, that the coaching part, I mean, now I've signed for 3 years. I'm also planning on doing something else, and that is, whether it's a different position in Falcons or whatever it is, but also, to build more for the future where I don't have to travel that much, because it hurts sometimes to see, being so much away from your family and you're missing so many things. And right now, the last months, I've been driving my kids to school every day, and I've been, watching my son play football, and it's a good way, to take a step back and to reconnect with your kids in some way. But yeah, I'm not looking to. I would love to win a major in CS2 because then I've done it as a player in 1.6 and both in CSGO and CS2. And if I can do that, and then after these 3 years, swap into a different role in Falcons or wherever I might end up, I would love to end my career as a coach in that fashion.
Right, at the end of this interview, do you have a final message? Is there someone you want to say hello to or thank you?
No, I just wanted to thank all the fans that have supported both me and my teams throughout the years. I think again, the whole thing about joining Falcons, Super proud to be here. I know what me and Lars stands for. No, I'm not getting $1.2 million per year, whatever people are saying. It's somewhat the same salary as I get in Vitality. If we win a major, it might be more, but it's not like significantly more. For me, it's the ride and the people that I work with that make me do this, and also to win and challenge myself. So yes, that's it.
Tusind tak.
Say tak.
I may not have the most supporters in the world, but the ones I do have are straight fire, and they include Mac Pugnaccio Rakula, Frisky, Ahmed Haju, Toucan, Tobias Bernasconi, Animosity, Tosh, Jensen Gore, and you know it always is a special thanks going out to Jerky's Minion. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my show? Do you want to see things I say on my Discord, little piece of straight fire I drop in the Patreon-only channels, stories I tell people in the other ones? Do you want to ask a question in my monthly AMA? Do you want teasers? Find out who the next guests are for reflections interviews? Maybe you want to be one of those people who takes part in the long-form discussion with me where we talk about whatever's on your mind in esports. Well, if any of those or more sound interesting, why not support me, put your money where your mouth is, and join the Illuminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.